The report of a public inquiry into Islamophobia in Scotland. And whilst many of the figures in that report will shock people across Scotland, they sadly won't surprise many Muslims who live in Scotland, because prejudice and hate impacts on life chances, life opportunities and life outcomes. This report contains 45 really important recommendations on how we can challenge and confront prejudice and hate, which covers our criminal justice system, our education system, our wider public services including our NHS, as well as the media. So please log on to www.islamophobiainquiry.org and see those recommendations and read that report for yourself, and let's work together to build that more tolerant, more equal Scotland that we all speak about. Let's make that a reality.
Well, listening to Anas Sarwar there with his little speech on his Twitter account, I did exactly what he recommended that I should do, and that was type in the aforementioned link, and it brought me to, of course, the cross-party group on tackling Islamophobia in Scotland. Now, Islamophobia, relatively vague term, but, you know, Anas Sarwar, somebody that I have made many a video on in the past, it has to be said, going so far as 2 years ago. Anas Sarwar thinks there's too many white teachers in Scotland. He's also on the record, I'm pretty sure, complaining about the fact there's too many white councillors in Scotland. Everything's too white. He also played a hand in a publication that came out, which is presented on the EIS website, which is the largest teaching union in Scotland. A document, if I remember correctly, Racism in Schools, which was about Scottish schools. You know, and it was made up primarily of anecdotal BS. That's the usual standard that these people operate by. Kind of reminds me of Intercultural Youth Scotland, a so-called independent organisation, just your proverbial social justice-esque. Our organisation who preached the choir about how racist Scotland is. They brought out a report at the beginning of this year, maybe it was last year, can't recall off the top of my head, where they essentially concluded, towards the end of their report, their study, as they had the audacity to call it, that schools in Scotland were racist. And if you read through the documentation, of course, it's anecdotal. And to be honest, it's not really much different this time around when it comes to this report. But, you know, before I kind of go into this, I'm going to try and keep this video somewhat short, and I'm going to try and not swear as much. You know, I've been doing a lot of streams recently, and I do tend to use a bit too much profanity, and I know that's not to everybody's taste, but, you know, some of the articles that have come out in relation to this so-called bombshell report, this bombshell study, courtesy of Anas Sarwar and his cronies. BBC Scotland, for example, Islamophobia in Scotland should shame us all. We've got STV News. Most Muslims in Scotland directly experience Islamophobia. Another article that I came across today, in fact, this morning, from Kezia Dugdale, where she says that, you know, Islamophobia in Scotland is nothing to be proud of. So, you know, I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with this video. I don't really have a plan, but I guess we could just start with the BBC article. So it goes on to say here that verbal and physical assaults have intensified, especially on public transport, with more participants in Glasgow experiencing abuse. Labour leader Anas Sarwar, who leads the group of MSPs behind the report, said the results should shame us all. Several recommendations have been made for the Rainbow Unicorn government to act upon, with the inquiry being set up in 2018 by a cross-party group of MSPs charged with tackling Islamophobia after levels of hatred, quote-quote, increased. Define hatred. The report, you know, of course, is hyperlinked, produced by Newcastle University professor Peter Hopkins, calls for the integration of an understanding of Islamophobia into Scotland's educational curriculum, also wanting to see the recruiting of more police officers from diverse communities. Oh, dearie me, you know, I'm just, I'm so beyond sick of it at this fucking point. I really am. I said I wouldn't swear, there I am already. Apologies if I sound a bit drooling out, I'm a bit burnt out, but it's just relentless, man. It's relentless. You know, more police officers, and as I alluded to earlier, too many white teachers, so we need to implement more BAME teachers, more BAME head teachers, more BAME police officers, because for some strange reason, because there was a lack of, due to so-called underrepresentation, there's somehow by default, that means these institutions, whether that be the teaching workforce or the education system or the police force, they're inherently institutionally racist. Why? Because there is too many white individuals, too many Scottish individuals, and not enough BAMEs. Like, every single time an ass Sarwar and his fucking cronies seem to come into the spotlight and perpetuate bollocks, it always seems to boil down to shoehorning in more BAMEs into position of power. Into more reputable positions of power. So anyway, where are we? Mr. Sarwar started the group after he was allegedly, I love this, allegedly, I actually, this video here, wait, where is it? Anas Sarwar, 3 years ago, Jesus Christ, victim of racism or a liar, I made videos on this at the fucking time. Labour probes claim of racist comments directed at Anas Sarwar. He came out and he proclaimed that he was told by some Labour MP, one of his comrades, if you want to call them that they would never vote for a Muslim Paki. That was the wording that was used, and they were referring to his wife, if I'm not mistaken, who, it was baseless claims, never proven. It went to a trial, and it essentially got thrown out in fucking court. There was a bit of controversy relating to it because he wasn't able to turn up or he wasn't informed of when the trial was, so he was essentially late for it. And of course, that was, no, the racism. Nah, he got off fucking lightly because he would have been embarrassed, rotten, had he gone there to participate in this court case. Nonetheless, though, even the BBC says allegedly subject to racism, but that's not stopped him. So we're expected to believe that he started a group which insinuates that Scotland is inherently racist and Islamophobic, a group that proclaims that Scottish education is inherently racist, a group that proclaims that the Scottish police force is inherently racist and Islamophobic. Why? Because apparently, baseless claims, by the way, in brackets, somebody said to him that they wouldn't vote for a Muslim Paki. This man has done nothing, even at the back of the BLM shit. All he ever did was whine and moan and insinuate that Scotland was racist. We need action, not words, was his words at the anti-white tirade that he and Hamza Yusuf both took part in the back of Fentanyl Floyd. This man is a fucking cancer. He wrote to the First Minister, Wee Thin Lips, outlining a series of proposals to tackle so-called everyday racism and Islamophobia across Scotland, calling for a review of the legal framework surrounding racist and Islamophobic abuse on social media. Oh, someone said something mean on social media. Responding to the report, Sarwar said, "We pride ourselves on being a welcome and tolerant country." Who is this we? I mean, he's Pakistani for... Compose yourself, mate. Oh, wow. Anyway, but it's clear how much more work we have to do. I mean, it's never enough. There's always more work to do. There are people in Scotland who feel scared to leave their homes for fear of verbal or physical attack, not off, or are withdrawing from public services with devastating knock-on consequences on their health and education and feel they are outsiders in their own country. Yeah, where's the proof? Oh, he's got the proof. Yeah, really fucking proving the point here, mate. But this one as well, Kezia Dagdale. And she says, Islamophobia in Scotland is nothing to be proud of, right? And, I'm not going to read this entire thing, but it's just, I'm so sick of this nonsense. She goes, "There's something about international sporting events that causes us to pause and see ourselves for a moment as others see us. It's a combination of the visual images and how we carry ourselves. Watching Scotland play in the Euros was a real moment of national pride. Valiant as ever in defeat, we can be proud of how we played, not least because of how well our opponents did in their later matches. We pride ourselves in being a welcome and tolerant country." Oh, it's almost identical to what Anas Sarwar was saying. We pride ourselves in being a welcome and tolerant country. They all say the same fucking thing. It's just a script. It's just a script. Anyway, so she says down here, and I need to find it because, as I say, I don't want to make this video too long. She says, Islamophobia is, of course, a form of racism which specifically targets Muslims or people perceived to be Muslim, and it's on the rise. If we are truly to be that tolerant and welcoming... Well, welcome and tolerant country. Yeah, they're all saying the same thing, singing from the same hymn sheet. We need to better understand what life is like for Muslims living in Scotland and take some serious action to make it better. Right, then she goes on and on and on. Labour, Glaswegian, and also the Pakistani. But if we come down here, where is it? I'm pretty sure it's around about here. Sorry. That's why much of the work we do as a country to tackle poverty and inequality fails to take into consideration race as a factor, despite BAME, Scots, or oxymoronic bollocks, being twice as likely to experience it. When we conduct an inquiry into COVID-19 and all that went wrong, how much focus there will be on minority ethnic communities' experience of it will be a real test of how much we've learned and are willing to learn, because, you know, COVID's fucking racist. We need more, this bit here, right? We need more senior Muslim police officers and local authority leaders, senior government officials and politicians, and we need to, and we need to do so much more to support the career pipeline that takes them to the top. You know, this is what I'm talking about, man. Like, so the implication is that Scotland is rife with Islamophobia, right? Rife with racism, because microaggressions are in the air alongside COVID particles, right? And the only way to quell this major issue within our society, the only way to stamp out and eradicate this burden is to employ more Muslim police officers, or, if we cast the net out a bit wider, more BAME police officers, more local authority leaders, more senior governmental officials, and of course politicians. We need more Muslim politicians, and we need more Muslim and BAME governmental officials, because that is the only way to eradicate racism. You see, there's a common theme. It's a common theme. This shock and awe factor that they try to imply and insinuate whenever they conjure up these daft fucking nonsensical, unproven reports, always seems to conclude one common theme, one after the other, and that is that we need more BAMEs and less whites. Above all else, we need to ditch the exceptionalism about and the whataboutery. We have a problem with Islamophobia. Oh, do we? We've got a problem with Islamophobia, apparently. You know, this is another one here. Intensification of Islamophobia in Scottish schools. Inquiry finds Islamophobia in schools is particularly challenging and children are often excluded from school life. Where's the proof? Well, fucking Sarwar's got the proof right here. Yeah, so he does, eh? There's the big man in question himself. Look at that beam face. Anyway, so, as I say, I'm not going to drag this video on too long, but, you know, like, it's just ridiculous, like, some of the bollocks that's in here. It really is. I'll leave the links below, obviously, for anybody that wishes to endure this cancer. But so, summary of recommendations: Islamophobia in Scotland. Right, this is proof, by the way, that this there's nothing to see here, folks. This is all real. Islamophobia in Scotland. The Scottish government should work to address. I'll zoom in a bit for you. To address the shortfall in data about Islamophobia in Scotland. Oh, there's a lack of data. Oh, that's Islamophobia. Scottish government should fund research and projects that adopt an intersectional approach to Islamophobia. Intersectional. Since when does Muslims give a shit about intersectionality? You're not noticing this common theme here. Progressives, far left dickheads, they love to power intersectionality and intersectional rhetoric. Now all of a sudden, just coincidental of course, not convenient at all. Oh, this report, this supposed independent report is calling for the same things that the progressives imply and insinuate on a daily fucking basis, man. The government and other authorities should pay specific attention to improving the analysis of intersections of religious and racial discrimination. And the government should work towards adopting a formal definition of Islamophobia to promote understanding, to encourage reporting, and to indicate their commitment to addressing it. You know, I was under the impression, so this is kind of news to me, that the Scottish government a few years ago had already addressed Islamophobia and they had recognised it. Maybe it's not been implemented into law per se, but it has been recognised. I'm pretty sure I've got the video on my channel of Nicola in fact, it was in Ask Sarwar, I remember it. And Ask Sarwar asked Nicola Sturgeon, I don't know if it was First Minister's questions or topical questions, whatever it was, but he asked her specifically if they were willing and prepared to address the definition, the legal definition of Islamophobia that had been previously acknowledged and announced and registered in England. And Thin Lips said that they were on it, they were going to do it. I can't remember exact wording, but nonetheless, so this is bizarre news to me. But anyway, either that or I'm imagining things, which I'm fucking not, by the way. Factors enabling Islamophobia, right? The Scottish government all leaders of political parties and council leaders should be proactive in taking a public stance against Islamophobia. The government should instigate an independent review into Islamophobia in Scotland. The government should integrate considerations about Islamophobia in ongoing work of the Race Equality Framework. Fucking cancer, by the way. If you've not read it, I suggest you don't, because, you know, I don't wish that upon anybody. The Scottish government should work to ensure the appointment of Muslims to public boards, advisory groups, and other senior positions. This is what what the fuck? Like, so let's just hypothesize here, and let's just say that Islamophobia really is a rampant issue in Scotland. How is this going to solve it? How is this going to solve it? This is a power grab. This is a fucking power grab. It's always a power grab. But it's disguised as they're trying to eradicate these nonsensical, non-existent fucking problems. The government should provide funding for initiatives, organisations and agencies. Not like they don't fund these organisations anyway, but they're clearly not given enough of that, Benjamin. Challenge Islamophobia and racism. I mean, look at what they fund year on year annually, man. They pump enough money into this shit. Given the weight of evidence against Prevent, Schedule 7 and related counter-terrorism legislation, the government should take steps to encourage the withdrawal of these and related strategies. Okay, that's beautiful and us. So anyway, we've got here... The Scottish Government should actively support initiatives to recruit more officers from within the Scotland's diverse communities, including Muslim officers, into Police Scotland, requiring all local authorities, schools and Police Scotland to ensure that all officers are regularly provided with high-quality training on countering Islamophobia. Define it, of course, they don't. Really. The Scottish Government should fund awareness-raising programmes about the safe reporting of Islamophobia. Also, it should review all legislation relevant to Islamophobia and justice where appropriate to ensure that the full inclusion of Islamophobia within this. The government should fund restorative justice initiatives to work with offenders and promote and encourage the reporting of Islamic incidents with support offered to victims. More recommendations, of course, in relation to education, which I really take great fucking issue with this. Like, you know, I don't have children yet. I'd love to have children one day. I hope the day comes when I do have a child or children. But what does concern me is these cancerous parasites and their constant obsession with trying to infiltrate and completely manipulate and, by extension, redesign our education system to benefit them. Whether it's bullshit from the Fife Council that came out several days ago pertaining to educating children in as far as the next term, they're talking about August this year, anti-racist education. The Scottish Government's own manifesto are talking about anti-racist education, or whether it's fucking an Sarwar. And there's 447 Muslim participants, supposed Muslim participants, that took part in a survey that somehow implies that the entirety of Scotland's racist based on anecdotal evidence. Nonetheless, my point is though, he wants to infiltrate the education system. This isn't the first time, as I alluded to at the beginning of this video. This is not fucking new. It's not new. This is what he does. The Scottish Government should fund and support initiatives to educate the people of Scotland about the damage that Islamophobia does to Scottish society. The government should fund and support initiatives that demonstrate the positive contributions of Scotland's Muslim communities to Scottish population, politics, culture and history. Integrate an understanding of Islamophobia into compulsory components of the education curricula. See this? And teaching, training, education. Provide all teachers and lecturers in Scotland regularly with compulsory training to counter Islamophobia. Require all educational institutions to create safe spaces for discussion, prayer and reflection. Require fucking schools to establish dress code policies that are sensitive to the needs of Muslims. This is Scotland. I'm sorry. But if Muslims have an issue living in our country, then I've got a little suggestion, and I know I promised I wouldn't swear, but just let me off this one time. Fuck off. Fuck off. Home. Encourage colleagues and universities to establish links with employers with a good and or leading record for diversity and champion ethnic diversity and anti-racist initiatives and policies. Conduct a review of Education Scotland's framework, How Good Is Our School? The Scottish Government should ensure that public sector equality duty is enforced in schools and provides additional training so that this can be better implemented and enforced. Encourage COSLA to develop and implement appropriate programmes of race equality into the school workforce. Improve the reporting and recording of Islamophobia in schools, and to scrutinise Education Scotland and the Race Equality Action Plan to see where improvements can be made, because, you know, it's not up to scratch for Nassarwar. It's just ridiculous. And of course, to my knowledge, to date, the Scottish Government haven't responded. Maybe they have, maybe I'm a bit late to the party, but they haven't responded. But you just know that they're going to adapt all these fucking recommendations. Of course they are! Because they do it all the time! You know, I mean, as I say, reading through this nonsense, man, trying to keep the video relatively short, but it's... I mean... so what have we got here? There may also be a value in restorative justice measures, but this is very dependent upon circumstances. It may, for example, be worth considering whether conditions could be attached to penalties when appropriate, for example, either to require the perpetrator to undertake work with the group against whom the offence was committed, or to bar him or her from working with groups who might be persuaded by his or her ideology. However, just as one would not normally expect a rape victim to face the rapist because of concern about reviving and exacerbating the trauma, the same is true of hate crime victims. Furthermore, it is important to avoid undermining the victim's faith in the justice system, as well as the faith of all those who share relevant characteristics with the victim, or denying them an impression that their case has been dealt with appropriately and justice served. A review of criminal punishment and considerations of more restorative measures were, rather than being dealt with purely by the criminal system, the offender needs to understand the community they are attacking so as to not increase their hatred. Many participants believe that the current legal status of Islamophobia is inadequate, and that making it a specific and more serious offence would both contribute to tougher police/legal action and serve to demonstrate to Muslims in Scotland that the problem has been recognised and addressed. Then, of course, one of the recommendations, go figure, as I've already read out at the beginning of the or halfway through the video, whatever. The government should actively support initiatives to recruit more officers from within Scotland's diverse communities, including Muslim officers into Police Scotland, yada yada yada. Then they talk about Brexit, you know. Brexit is one factor among many that participants discuss when explaining their increasing experience of Islamophobia in Scotland. Several participants connect Brexit with anti-Muslim British nationalism and xenophobia. I'm a Scottish nationalist, I'm not a British nationalist, but, you know, I mean, nonetheless, it's just bollocks. This is just nonsensical shit. You know, the narrative that's been presented, the narrative that's been conjured up by politicians in the mainstream media will have you believe that everybody in Britain that vote for Brexit is racist and Islamophobia, etc., by extension is right. Therefore, isn't it convenient that you've got these so-called Muslims, whether they are or not, probably are Muslims, but I would consider them to be like Hamza Yusuf's type Muslims or Anas Sarwar type Muslims, but isn't it convenient that they come out and they reaffirm the narrative that has been manufactured, artificially inflated by the mainstream media? Isn't it fucking funny? It's almost as if it's bullshit! Because they all pretend there's a problem in society, they all pretend there's a problem in Scottish society, and then reports come out like this that reaffirm the claims being made by these people, despite the fact the claims that are being made by the aforementioned people is in fact bollocks! Anyway, several participants connect Brexit with anti-Muslim British nationalism and xenophobia manifested in intensified in forms of abuse against Muslims in Scotland. Before the Brexit vote, I never thought there was an issue. This is obviously, somebody's been quoted here. I rarely had to discuss my religion, but since I've been in numerous conversations about Islam, and having to state that Muslims are not all terrorists, I've been shouted at in my place of work for being Arabic and having an Arabic name. I've been asked sexist, racist, and Islamophobic questions, and if I don't answer, I'm too sensitive. I've also lost some friends, people who think the treatment of Muslims in America and the UK is justifiable. Due to Brexit, new policies in immigration, and Boris Johnson's previous comments regarding Muslim women and immigrants, I do believe Islamophobia will increase. I mean, just fucking shut up. Shut up. Honest to God, man. I mean, oh yeah. Of course, because Big Boy Joe, he said something about letterboxes, and all of a sudden, yeah, it's rife, you know. With the intolerance of Brexit and its supporters, this is a fucking literal document, by the way, folks. It somehow proves Islamophobia is rife, and the caliber of the rhetoric included within says that the intolerance of Brexit and its supporters, so we're intolerant if you vote for Brexit, yeah? There was a rise in the chant of foreigners go home, which they should. I'm sorry, they should. We don't want you here. It's not racist to say that. We were never asked, as cliche as it is at this point. That is not and will never be acceptable. Isn't it funny, though, the countries that you originate from? I wonder if they share the same views as those you imply are intolerant. I'm pretty sure they do. And on it says here as well, Tell Mama report. Oh, Tell Mama. The same group of people, by the way, that lost Anas Sarwar loves to do this. I've made, as I said, I've included this in videos before. Anas Sarwar seems to be working in tandem with Tell Mama. They lost funding for bullshitting about Islamophobia. Isn't that funny? But they report, apparently. This will be good. You know, fucking tell mama, the Pinocchio group, the Brexit party dropped a local candidate who called for mosques to be bulldozed and for the cancer of Islam to be crushed, right? For many, Brexit is closely connected to the wider language, actions and policies of those politicians who fuel and legitimise Islamophobia. There are references to politicians in general, specifically Nigel Farage, Trumpy Boy, and especially Big Bojo, the Wee Hat, and the Conservative Party. Participants believe that the prominence of such figures in their anti-Muslim stance have emboldened people to be confident in Islamophobia, or at least less fearful of retribution, and that's in far-right politics. Oh, fucking far-right! Ooh! Islamophobia is also said to be increasing in Scotland because of the emboldening and growing support of far-right groups. They don't exist, by the way, but this is what they do. This is what they do. What did I just say a couple of minutes ago? I said this video is going to be short, man, but I'm just getting so fucking worked up. As I just said a few minutes ago, where they've perpetuated and insinuated, where they've conjured up, they've manufactured this narrative where the far right's on the rise, far right politics and rhetoric is prevalent and prominent, and racism is rife, microaggressions are everywhere next to the covert particles, as I said earlier, and all these things, right? Then reports come out that reaffirm it. Like, the far right doesn't exist. It's inside the mindset and the rhetoric and the ideology of the far left, you know, to put it bluntly, you know, to put it into layman's terms. It doesn't exist, but yet it's still included as if it does. You know, it doesn't fucking exist. With the rise of the far right, it's only going to get worse, especially with the advent of far right leaders in Europe and Trump. Fucking Trump! Fucking, what the fuck? Come on! Who else? What, fucking, what's her name? Marine Le Pen? Oh, come on, get away, man. Get in the bin. Or Farage. Ooh, oh, Boris Johnson. Ooh, so far right. The behaviour of the Tory party. Oh, the fucking Tories are far right now, right? Some people are getting more bold to say out loud which before they kept to themselves. There is also a report out by Cage, which I recommend you read in Schedule 7, which is a draconian law targeting Muslims. Is it? Aye. You know, they go on to talk about the media and they insinuate that obviously, you know, when a Muslim perpetrates a so-called terrorist attack, and I say so-called because I'm a very skeptical person and don't really know how much I buy into these terrorist attacks that have supposedly taken place. Nonetheless, the implication that is portrayed here is that when a Muslim does it, it's, you know, all Muslims are bad, but when a white guy does it, it's mental health issues. No. The sole difference there is pretty self-explanatory, is that it's ISIS and jihadi masterminds that are supposedly perpetrating the attacks on behalf of Islam. Whereas when a white guy does it, he's not part of any group, so what the fuck you meant to call it? Still classified as a terrorist attack, though. Darren Osborne, again, another attack I'm not entirely sure about, but the point is, though, he was still classed as a terrorist attack, you know what I mean? But, was that Finsbury? Yeah, it might have been, I can't remember. But, yeah. So, I mean, as I say, it goes on, and I really don't want to drag this video out too long. But, as I say, I'll leave it in. But it's just ridiculous. Barriers created by Islamophobia in Scotland. Survey participants were asked about the barriers that Islamophobia creates in Scotland. We explore barriers in relation to 5 domains: education, employment, health, well-being, and housing, politics, and participation in everyday life. Oh, this will be fucking good. This is riveting stuff, by the way. Increasing Islamophobia in schools. Dean's report in Edinburgh schools mentioned in the SAC response above demonstrates the prevalence of Islamophobia. In the inquiry survey, schools are shown to be places where Islamophobia is experienced increasingly, both for teachers and pupils. Where's the proof? Where's the fucking proof? There's no proof. Define Islamophobia, you know what I mean? Oh, but they never do. They never do. Really, you know, here's some stats here. What's it say? Big question survey. 39% of BAME teachers said they had been subject to discriminatory language or abuse by people, and 60% have been subject to discriminatory language or abuse by a parent or carer, with a furthermore 80% of BAME teachers in the survey believing that the job had impacted negatively on their well-being in the last 12 months. No elaboration, just anecdotal nonsense. Scotland has a low and declining number of ethnic minority teachers. Only 1.1 of primary teachers and 1.8 of secondary teachers in Scotland come from an ethnic minority background, suggesting that BAME people experience barriers to entering the teaching profession. There's no proof. It's suggested. Why? Of course, because 4%, according to the last census, as I keep saying in my videos, 4% of the last census was BAME in the population, 96% white. Therefore, because 4% of the primary school teachers in general, as a collective, aren't BAME, somehow that's racist and it's discriminatory, and it quite clearly showcases that there's barriers in place. Why? Because it's not 4%. This is fucking stupid. It's stupid. An anti-Muslim prejudice. Oh, fucking shut up. You know, So what are the recommendations for this? Because I really want to end this video half an hour long. I am so sorry. The government should fund and support initiatives to educate the people of Scotland, about the damage that Islamophobia does to Scottish society. I mean, just, you need to be re-educated. You need to think like a BAME. You need to think like an Sarwar. The government should fund and support initiatives that demonstrate the positive contributions of Scotland's Muslim population to Scottish society, integrate an understanding of Islamophobia into compulsory components of the Scottish education and curricula and all teaching training education. I mean, it's just... Why? Why? Because, 1.1 of the primary school teachers are BAME, and it's not enough, Increased Islamophobia in the workplace, Islamophobia in health, well-being in houses. Islamophobia can lead to marginalisation, apparently. Fuck off. Anti-white hatred can as well, but we're not allowed to talk about it. But it's fine for an Asar to stand in our parliament and denigrate white people and denigrate our society while he stands there with his fucking book in his hand like a wee dickhead, man. Sorry, half an hour, that's too long. Anyway, as I said, I'll leave all the links for you to read through it properly. Probably not the best video that I've ever conjured up, but as I say, I'm a bit burnt out now. So, aye, peace. Have a good weekend, boys and women.